the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. I'm not quite done talking about this personal integrity, these questions that come up, and I hear it in politics all the time. When people compromise their personal integrity, they're considered to be corrupt. I talk a lot about the amount of books I read. 4 or 5 books a week. And a lot of them are about this size, 150 pages or so. There's a lot of books that come out. Most of them turn out to be smaller books like this, so you can go through a book like this in 5 or 6 hours if you stay with it. If you, instead of sitting down and you'd be surprised what you can accomplish after dinner. You have dinner at 6 o'clock, and instead of doing something silly after dinner, wasting your time on dumb stuff, you could read a book like this before you go to bed at 11 o'clock. And you can get a lot of books read that way, and that's how I do it. And I read books like this, The Project Management Blueprint. There's very little I ever learn out of a book like this. I've read just about every one of these kinds of books. Business books, pro-business books. This one came out, I think, in 2024. This is a post-COVID book, so I'm always interested to see how corporate management views itself after COVID, for instance, when all these new COVID policies and the woke industry standards, how they get applied and how the rules of corporate engagement are viewed. And I thought that this book was particularly interesting about halfway through it. If you were to ask me what's the difference between this book and all the other ones, all the other kinds of books about project management, and I'll get into the relevance of that in a minute too. But this book talks a lot about developing emotional intelligence skills. Right there you go. See that? And I would think that's a particularly anti-woke thing to say as someone who's not very intelligent because they don't have emotional capacity. Here's more to it. Section 3.4, Emotional Intelligence in Project Management. Fundamentals of Emotional Intelligence, right there. And when I read this, I was pretty shocked by it. But it's come up here recently, and when someone says, you compromise too much, or like on the pedophilia accusation, you go too easily along with other people's opinions. Well, I've been married for 38 years. Been married a long time, raised a few kids. I have a bunch of grandkids. And I like to take vacations and trips with my family. And let me tell you something, it ain't easy to figure out how to get everybody from one place to another and to coordinate that over a vast span of time, over multiple vehicles, with everybody wanting to stop by. Some people want to go to Chick-fil-A, some people want to go to Cracker Barrel, some people want to stop by the Love's Travel Center. Everybody has a preference, and it's hard to get everybody to agree. And I also associate that with put 4 people in a car and tell them to go to somewhere. And then you have a driver and you have all the backseat drivers saying, turn right, turn left. I want to stop by this or I want to stop by that. This is the best way to go. Take this road. Anytime, the balance you have, and this is something I've had to learn in life, is you want to give all the contributors personal autonomy for their contributions. You want to inspire leadership by allowing people to give their personal inputs into something so they feel invested in whatever you want to go. If you're trying to drive to downtown Cincinnati to a particular parking garage, and everybody's got an opinion on how to get to that parking garage, you might, if you're by yourself, the easiest thing to do is just drive by yourself. Just get in the car and drive. And I enjoy going lots of places by myself. I enjoy vast amounts of time by myself. I get pretty grumpy when I don't get my reading time by myself to sit down and read a book. I choose to read at the pace I want to read it at. I really don't care to have everybody else's personal opinions injecting themselves into my time consumption. It's not a good thing. But you also learn through leadership training and business management tools how to evoke the best out of people, and that is to give them personal autonomy. Listen to what they're telling you. If they say turn right down, get on to 75 and take that through all the traffic to get down to one of the exits to take you to downtown Cincinnati, if you don't listen to them, they're going to feel chastised and deferred. So when you're in politics, this is just a good lesson. When you're in politics and you're trying to get political actions moving, you want to get people's buy-in. So you listen to what they tell you. You try to incorporate it into the plans best you can. And what you would call in this book here, Project Management Blueprint, they would call that emotional intelligence, because you have the emotional intelligence to accept other people's opinions and thoughts without feeling like you're having yourself dissected and lost in the process. A lot of people and families feel that way. They feel that the kids don't listen to them, their wives don't listen to them, nobody listens to them. They know how to go. They know how to get to where they got to go, and no one ever cares about the value of their getting to it. Because they want to inject their own personal preferences that they may not have quite as much emotional intelligence to make the decision. And the person who has a lot will feel like they're getting run over all the time. And that's certainly the case. And let me just talk about the pedophilia cases in Butler County. When the case at and this is what I would say, and these are lessons I learned from reading all these books. When you're doing, you might have your personal opinion about something. But if you're not very firm in your convictions, then yeah, you'll be washed away like a sandcastle built on a beach ahead of high tide. And the high tide comes in, you're helpless to stop the water, and it comes and washes away all that hard work you did all day at the beach, building that sandcastle. People who are very emotionally insecure, people who don't have very much emotional intelligence. And as I think about emotional intelligence, I think of Ben Wynn, the recent young man who was elected to the Lakota School Board, who has a lot of emotional intelligence. He can sit down with people who don't agree with him and talk and work things out with them and listen to them. And that's a good thing. And it's not a sign of corruption to be able to listen to other people and get them pointed in the right direction. It means you have a lot of emotional intelligence where you're not, because you're working with other people, listening to their opinions, they're telling you to turn right or turn left or take this road or take that road. They're driving you nuts because you know how to get there, but you listen to them because you're trying to get their buy-in as a leader. You're trying to get their autonomy to the project, to whatever you're trying to achieve. And in politics, you're trying to elect people, or you're trying to get bullet points narrowed down to 2 or 3 things that voters can hang their hat on. That's emotional intelligence, is to find the things that people can invest themselves into. Now, when it came to the pedophilia claims, I've covered those cases lots of times when people bring them to my attention, and I'll go all in. But in the case of like the Butler Tech student who, and I pause there because I'm thinking about a lot of things. I know a lot of people at Butler Tech. I work with Butler Tech. I like the people at Butler Tech. I think it's a good thing. I hate to see it get destroyed. But there was a case where a student on a mentor program at Butler Tech found themselves at the Butler County Jail having sex with inmates. And people were outraged by it. How could it happen? Because there was a superintendent at Lakota schools that people felt were cared for by the sheriff. And I happen to know the sheriff. I like the sheriff. And people, as I say that, will say, well, you know, the reason why they invite you, they being the power structure, they invite you to so many things and they want to take pictures with you and, you know, they send you texts or, you know, have personal messages for you. The reason why they seek friendships with you is so that you don't write about them. They want to control the narrative by befriending you. Well, okay, it takes emotional intelligence to understand the difference. You have to understand how people play things, and are you being played, or are you being the one doing the playing? Are you trying to get people to something, or are you just trying to weasel your way through something? And easily fall to corruption of every kind because you're too weak to stand up to it. In the case of the pedophile case with the Butler Tech student, I managed to get myself involved in a personal tour of the Butler County Jail. I talked personally about, to Sheriff Jones about that and many other things during an interview process at the Butler County Jail. So I went there to go see it for myself. And after my investigation of it, now a lot of this occurred while I was a member of the grand jury. Actually, I was a foreman of a grand jury for about a month a couple years ago. And I got to be the top cop. So I got to know the prosecutor's office very well. I got to know everybody involved in this whole thing beyond a reasonable conspiracy. So I had a good idea of who was saying what and when and under what conditions. Thought that was pretty interesting. So during that grand jury, during the grand jury experience I had, I got to know all the people, all the members of law enforcement, to a point where I felt that they weren't a part of a pedophilia conspiracy, but that they were wrapped up in their own version of emotional intelligence, where they're trying to take the resources that are given to them, prosecutors that they have, attorneys that they have to go up against, grand juries that have different degrees of emotional intent, and have to get cases put forth that will uphold and stand up and hold up in court. And then you've got a lot of emotional people that work for you, thousands of them. They all have their own brand of problems. They're all managing their own lives in different degrees, whether in healthy ways or not healthy ways. Some of them are going through divorces, and they're at ages where their sexual tendencies are corrupt, and they're seeking out sex with underage people. Happens whenever you have a lot of people on payroll that you're managing. How much are you allowed to manage their personal lives to keep them out of trouble? And then how much are you responsible for them? Or do you create a culture that facilitates it? That's the thing. And after my grand jury experience and getting to know everybody, being the top cop of Butler County for a month, essentially, and getting to know everybody really well, prosecutors and everybody involved in the law enforcement practice, interviewing literally hundreds of officers, Butler County officers, over the course of that grand jury testimony that I saw so many cases of. I felt that what was going on was human failure trying to institute itself into a structured society. That was the main problem. And most of my solutions move more towards a biblical context. Do people have a foundation of goodness in their essential everyday life? The answer was no. And that's the ultimate way to fix a lot of it, to expect institutions and rules of human beings to come up with those kinds of resistors, temptations, isn't very practical. And when you put a bunch of people into a jail, like we have in Butler County, you take young people and you put them in with a bunch of professional thieves and criminals who know how to say the paint off a wall. It can be a dangerous combination. And it's easy to criticize and throw rocks at it. So I tend to be a lot more, my experience with talking to Sheriff Jones about that case was that I'm glad that the jail's there. I think he runs a pretty good jail. And I think the Butler County officers did a pretty good job. Did they not do a great job with the Lakota superintendent case? Well, they got everything on record that was important. And they investigated the case to the point where they thought they could get get what they could get out of it. But you still got to present that stuff to a grand jury and get a bunch of emotional people to buy into it. And when I was on the grand jury, I'd say that I was a dream for a lot of the prosecutors, because I was able to convince people on the grand jury through emotional intelligence how to get how to move forward with some of those cases and start prosecuting them. How to get grand juries to go along with the prosecution. And that takes emotional intelligence. It takes that in program managements. It takes that in business, corporate culture. You're often going to find yourself in situations where people aren't always aligned with what you need to be doing or what you want to do. And you might feel like you're personally being run over. Your personal integrity is being questioned because no one's listening to you and following your directions. Because they have their own view of things. And the more people you add to a project, it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to accommodate other people's opinions without losing yourself in the process. And just because someone's good at it doesn't mean they're corrupt. And it doesn't mean they're compromised people. It just means that they're secure in their own personal viewpoints, and that working with other people isn't going to shake their foundation. And a lot of people fear that in themselves, so they don't play well with other people. They usually don't find themselves in marriages that last very long, because they have to maintain their personal integrity because their spouse doesn't listen to them about how to cut the grass or what food to have in the refrigerator. And you don't want to get in the habit of compromising everything in life, compromising everything you do to somebody else so there's nothing left of you. But it's a balancing act, and it requires emotional intelligence. Sometimes people have it by instinct. Sometimes they develop it. This book suggests that you can develop it. And if you're a leader of an organization, you're expected to develop emotional intelligence in your employees so that they know how to work with other people without losing the personal integrity that they bring to a project, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And that the goal of accomplishing the thing is the goal, not in the personal feelings of the participants. They'll come and go, just like in elections. I have a well-known track record of being very right about things, because I'll pick the 2 or 3 things. It's just like in program management, project management. You pick the objectives, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish in the endeavor. You find what it is everybody can invest themselves into, and you get everybody to invest in themselves. Drop away the things that you don't agree on, find the things you do agree on, and build something from it. And that's what you do in politics. And that's how you get candidates elected. That's how you get people to endorse with central committees. You find things everybody can kind of say, you know what, I like that guy or I like that gal. I can get behind that person. And you take the personal stuff out of it. And going back to Ben Wynn, not to embarrass the young guy, he's right out of high school. He's in his first year of college at Miami University. He's doing a great job working with the other adults at the Lakota School Board. Working with people that are very much opposed to his politics, sitting down with them and getting them to get the yes. Getting people to yes is a hard thing to do in life, and you do that with emotional intelligence, not by insisting, I know how to drive to Cincinnati, we're going to go down this road, and you shut up and listen until stop backseat driving. The minute you do that, you lose everybody's inputs, and then they're working against you, and they're not working with you on a project. And you have to do that in politics. And just because you have high emotional intelligence to get to good, or you have enough to ask the question, is there pedophilia going on in my community, and what am I going to do about it? And my case is I personally go investigate. I'll go talk to people and say, hey, this is what is going on. What do you say? Why is it happening? And go, can I have a tour of the jail? Can I see where this happened? Can I see the conditions for which these things occurred? And then once you see it, you're like, there's a lot of hardworking people, and it's full of human beings with false personal failures. And you put that many personal people that have personal problems on payroll, all of them going through divorces, all of them going through meeting spouses, getting married, having kids thinking that their parents are idiots, and then going to work with that knowledge in the back of their head. People go through lots of stuff, and you put that many people on payroll, and they're going to have failures. then how do you create a culture that incorporates everybody's best without facilitating their worst? That's hard. And a lot of people fail at it. And you want to try to encourage the best out of those people so you can get the best investment that people have of themselves to invest in whatever it is you're trying to achieve, whether it's a good workplace or good KPIs. Obviously, if you have Butler Tech students you're trying to teach to be good cops growing up and they are having sex with the inmates, that's not a good thing. How can you fix it? And then everybody goes back and tries to figure out how to do that without violating people's personal rights and freedoms. It takes high emotional intelligence to do these things. That doesn't make people an automatic sellout because they have high emotional intelligence, and the critics don't. And that's often what you find when you get people who just they want to say it's corrupt. Something's corrupt because they lack the emotional intelligence to facilitate success in those environments. Because they are so insecure in their personal validation that they seek fulfillment and personal validity through insisting on their way or version of reality. Whether it's driving in a car, hey, I'm going this way. Don't give me your inputs. I don't want to hear from you. Now you're excluding people from the process, and that's not good leadership. But you might be able to get to where you got to go quick because you know the best way to get there, and you know that, and you're letting everybody else know that too. That's not the way you build teams. And when you're in politics, you're trying to build teams. So a little bit of lesson in emotional intelligence. It's a thing. It's a thing in leadership development, and it's certainly a thing in politics. And I personally wish more people had it. The way I maintain my personal integrity is I give myself time after dinner to read books, lots of books like this. I spend my lunches not running around wasting time on stupid things. I take an hour or an hour and a half and I read books. And then I finish the books usually after dinner when I get home. And I do it all through the week. And I do 4 or 5 of them a week. And they may only be books about this size. There's a lot of books. The majority of the books written out there these days are about this size. Because it costs a lot of money to publish books. And that's typically what comes out of the wash by the time editors get done with it. But you can knock those books out in 5 or 6 hours. Most books can be read in under 10 hours. So if you work at it and you stay with it and you don't get sidetracked by a bunch of nonsense, by a bunch of other people in your life trying to impose their lack of emotional intelligence on you and you always dealing with it, you can get a lot done in the world. And in the case of this, emotional intelligence is a real thing. They're actually talking about in corporate structure in books like this, 2024, after COVID. Now the DEI policies are falling apart everywhere. It's not exactly taboo to say in a public setting or a human resource environment that what you're looking for in these candidates are people with high emotional intelligence. That's perfectly acceptable. And books like this make it so. And by reading them, you know, if you find yourself in court because some employee says someone didn't give me enough ability to be successful at my job, you can defend yourself with that kind of corporate logo and understanding the jargon that's being used. And emotional intelligence is a factor in any kind of group setting these days. And it's certainly a factor in politics. If you have high emotional intelligence, you're going to have a lot more wins than losses. And I do have a reputation for being associated with a lot of wins. A lot of my policies, a lot of my picks do well. And why is that? Because I can usually articulate a position. I can move the needle a few percentage points, especially in local elections, because I can break it all down to 2 or 3 points that everyone can hang their hat on. And I do that professionally a lot. And that doesn't make you a compromised person. It just means that you have the ability to bring people to a topic through emotional intelligence, a developed skill that is a leadership trait. And if more people had it, the world would be a lot better off. Just a little bit of a lesson for those who are lacking emotional intelligence and how they can get it to make a better world and stop just tossing because they lack emotional intelligence, throw the corruption angle around because they lack the ability to bridge the gap, because they find themselves being pushed around by everybody else in the world whether it's a spouse or whether it's their kids or their grandkids or their neighbors, because they don't have the emotional intelligence to impose their own will on others and making other people feel like it's their knowledge and their decision to arrive at a conclusion that was set by the leader. Part of the emotional intelligence is saying, I'm confident enough in my own abilities, my own viewpoints, to accept other people's points of view and sell them in ways that makes them think they had the idea to begin with. So they invest instead of working against your policies. That's emotional intelligence and leadership. And that's how you get things done. More things done, and the Republican Party would be a whole lot better off. All political parties, Democrats, sort of do that because they're mass collectivists and they have lack of individual input anyway. So they're particularly good at working together, which doesn't make them right. It just makes them makes it a challenge to beat. When you have a lot of individuals who are insisting on their way or the highway, and you got to put them in a room and make them work together. It takes emotional intelligence to get them all pointing in the right direction, and only really good leaders can do that. And it's a leadership trait that I look for and try to develop in other people. And in doing so, that's not corruption. It's emotional intelligence. And it's a trait that is very important in order to pull off a task that requires a lot of people to perform, and they all have to agree on how to get there. Not an easy thing to do. It's often very, very difficult. But doing it is a skill of its own, and it's required in most endeavors that require multiple people to work together towards a goal. And that's what you certainly are doing in politics. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.
In the age of disclosure, you must understand the politics of heaven. Coming soon. Coming soon, the politics of heaven in 2027. A treasure hunt through heaven and all human history.